Fellow YouTubers, we're going to talk about spirituality today, but we're going to talk about a specific aspect: enlightenment and awakening. So, in the world right now, there's a mass awakening happening, and people are getting put under pressure by all the variety of things that are going on in the world, and this is causing people to start awakening and becoming enlightened even into their adulthood. Kids are being born awakened. That's been happening since the millennial age, the millennial generation. Anyway, and awakening is a good thing, for sure. Everybody knows that. Awakening means we're becoming more aware of the earth, more aware of what's important and what's not important, and the fact that we're spirits living human experiences, not just humans living spiritual experiences. We are spirit beings. We are beyond form. We are beyond time. We are beyond space. All these things are real. The awakening will enlighten you to that. When you start becoming enlightened, you will be targeted. This is most certain. We can be certain that you will be targeted by dark spirits, entities in the astral planes and whatnot, and there will be people that will be drawn to your kindness, your goodness, your light, and in the sense of the right hand path, and in the sense of left hand path, people will be drawn to your darkness. Either way, whatever you consider the good side, in your opinion, or whatever side you're on, and if you're not on a side and you're on both sides like us, well then, in all reality, your light or your darkness, your essence, your being, draws in these forces, and that's why there's an increase in the amount of increase in the population has an effect, but also essentially as awakening increases, so do the birthing pains of the world. In other words, as we're trying to create a utopian society, which obviously its aim is to create paradise and therefore expand that paradise, it means that our enlightenment needs to be streamlined. We need to work in tandem with technology, in tandem with science, with everything that we possibly can. We have to, as a group of people, and as spiritual leaders, all the people out there who, and I'll call out to you, all you spiritual leaders, we got to join together, and we have to work together with all the other leaders of the world. We have to take nature more seriously, and all these things are directly related to awakening. Awakening, you start realizing that the earth is important, that everyone is important, and that everyone has good within them. In fact, you recognize that everyone is divine. A lot of times what happens, and has happened in the past for all of the generations before the millennial generation, people wouldn't become enlightened or even pursue spiritual topics or magic or even world issues as much as they could in the olden days, because there was so much stigma against it, and people didn't consider these things until they were old, until they had realized that death was upon them. And as crazy as that seems, but that's the reality. People just didn't see the value of approaching spiritual topics. And even in our modern day society, in the Western society, spirituality has very little importance to our society. People do not take it seriously. But I mean, that is all starting to change in the current times that we are going through. Everybody is indeed starting to awaken. Even some of the most evil people are starting to be aware that the world is awakening to their evil. We are here to fight evil, to create a utopian world. And a lot of people are going to say, "Oh, that's extremism. That's bad." That's not the reality at all. The truth is that this is not bad. This is the apex when we come into a convergence. We're coming into a convergence of where many souls that are higher in their status of goodness are being born onto the earth. Of course, with the increase in population, that means there's also an increase in evil. But as we know, and we all know this, the awakening is being fought by the elites. The elites, especially the elites that specifically are controlling countries and governments, banks, hoarding gold and jewels and other precious items. I'm not so certain it's the conspiracies are accurate on who's doing it, but there are most certainly certain individuals in the world that are trying to encourage war, encourage differences, and there is an antichrist-like thing going on here where the new world order is starting to be formed. It's been talked about many times by presidents and prime ministers all over the world. It's become a serious issue. The Georgia Guidestones, for example, they try to keep one of the rules on there is keep population under 500 million. They're talking about genocide. They're talking about people being genetically inferior. In other words, we're talking about eugenics. These are the kind of things that the elite are into, that's why these people are so against the spiritual enlightenment age, which is what we're really in now. The original enlightenment was more of a scientific enlightenment, and an enlightenment in the sense of understanding basic theory. But now we're going into an extreme age of enlightenment where we will be able to do things that we were not capable of doing before. Technology and science will play a huge role in blending with spirituality and magic in the future if we are to survive as the human race. So, one of the things to keep in mind about awakening is that despite all the positives that come along with it, understanding all the knowledge and whatnot that comes along with awakening, there will be negative side effects, sometimes sickness and physical and mental health, which is precisely why, as Quinn and I, if you watch my introduction, the video before this, we've discussed that the mental illness is not really mental illness. When it comes to severe cases, and when it comes to most cases, this is not mental illness. This is spiritual illness. It goes beyond the mind and goes beyond the body. The reality is when people have episodes, they're being alerted to messages and secrets about the universe. I remember one of my episodes, and I remember what happened during it. I was trying to tell people that this guy was evil, and it turned out he'd ended up being a con artist, and nobody could understand me because I couldn't convey it. But at the same time, I was right. I had inside knowledge. I knew about the character of this individual. So there are many things we have to consider, and you have to be careful, but do not be afraid of awakening. Do not be afraid of the world awakening, because the future is very bright if we work together.
Please like, comment, and subscribe. Remember to share this story and join the guild.